Acers, and welcome back to the next installment of Simply GM. This is for the Ace Role Playing Games channel, and welcome in if you're new here. Now, I hope that you're getting some good value out of these, and I would love to hear some feedback from you. So, we're going to move forward with this, and remember that this is all for the Savage Worlds role-playing game. They are not my sponsor, and I am not sponsored here. But as an independent game master who has played a lot of game systems, you can see my shelves back there. I have been playing role-playing games for a very long time. Over 30 years, let's put it that way. I'm a grognard. And I can tell you that in those over 30 years, no system has met more of my check boxes of this is what I require in a good system than Savage Worlds. I love fantasy systems, and fantasy systems can be great. But when you play something like Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, you often get stuck just in that fantasy. And fantasy is fun. I do not poo-poo anybody's fun. But if you want a system that will meet every need you have as a player and as a game master, in most cases, then check out Savage Worlds. I admit I haven't tried to Savage Dune in Savage Worlds yet, because that's what we call it in Savage Worlds when we savage things. We call it savaging. When we convert something Savage Worlds into into. Let me pause here real quick. Okay. So when we convert something, a story, a setting, a character, or whatever, into Savage Worlds, playable stuff, we make it savaged. That's what we call it collectively. We savage something. So I have seen savaged versions of Scooby-Doo. That's actually one of the first setting games I ever ran. I ran it for a Halloween. I have savaged a few other things. I've savaged Star Wars. And there's lots of people who have. I've just done my own version of it, and my own version turned out to be pretty fun. But my main point here is that if you like something, get the feel of it, and then savage it. So I'm going to take my Dune Adventures in the Imperium, which the 2D20 system that Modifus puts out is okay. I give them a shout out, because it's not a bad system. I liked it better than I liked the D20 system for 5th edition. That said, Savage Worlds, I think, is going to knock the pants off of it. There are certain things that are just unplayable as role-playing games. And I would include, actually, the main story arc of Dune as part of that. And I would include my late uncle Dave Wolverton's Rune Lords series that he wrote under the pen name of David Farland. I would include those as unplayable in any role-playing game system. And sometimes you just need to know your system. But I want to give a shout out to Savage Worlds for being the most adaptable and the greatest game engine that I have ever played with, and in my opinion, one of the greatest role-playing games that has ever existed in the 50 years of role-playing gaming. I'm grateful for D&D. I'm grateful that it started the whole thing off, and I'm grateful for the other forerunners who came before Savage Worlds. But my hat I tip to Shane Lacey Hensley and to all of my friends there at Pinnacle. And I want to say thank you for giving me hours and hours of fun and, hey, kind of spawning this channel. So, thank you. That said, now that my not sponsorship has been covered, I want to cover a few more hazards in Savage Worlds and some kind of general rules for you to have as a Savage Worlds game master that you can keep in mind. The first thing I want to cover before I get into this is the rule of threes. Now, the rule of threes is something that extreme survivalists will talk about sometimes, but you don't hear it too often as a normal, healthy, urbanized person. And that is that you kind of work three. Okay, so here we go. If you are deprived of one of these things for a period of 3 time periods, you'll die. And so, as a game master, you need to know these, so that way you can look at finding ways of depriving your player characters of these things, and make them do the struggles to get over it. Because I mean, that's what our thing is. I've talked before about how we are the problems department. We are the group that gets out there and we make problems for these player characters to have to overcome. And that's where the story happens. So, let's start with this. A character, as a standard rule of survival, most people can survive for 3 minutes without air. They'll likely pass out and need resuscitation after a minute, but they can survive 3 minutes. So, and because I was told a long time ago that the longest a person can really, in most cases, exert themselves and hold their breath is about a minute. And I was told that in conjunction with one of my favorite movies growing up, and still one of my favorites, although it was a rather heavy-handed, ham-fisted Save the Whales movie. It literally was a Save the Whales movie. It was Star Trek IV. I loved that movie. And of course, Kirk, when they crash the Klingon bird of prey that they picked up in Star Trek III, and they crash land that into the oceans of the Earth, carrying the 2 humpback whales, but the releases from the control center are jammed, so Kirk takes a deep breath and dives underneath the water, and he swims, and he gets a hold of the thing, and he opens the cargo bay just in time and pops up, and we used to time it when I first found this fact out, and it actually only takes about a minute of screen time for him to do that. Now, probably to film it, they probably had an air hose down there that he was... And William Shatner's always been kind of a fun actor, and Captain Kirk, as over the top as he is, he's still fun. But also, you have the time period that Bud and Catfish are... or that Bud is holding his breath underwater when he's going from one sub-bay into another sub-bay in the abyss. And of course, he's better at holding his breath because he's a trained diver. And they're down in that deep saturation environment. And the Abyss is one of my favorite movies. I'm going to probably do at least a video about the Abyss in the future, but I have to say that one is one of my all-time favorite movies. I highly recommend it, especially if you can get a hold of the director's cut, but they're only on DVD so far. James Cameron, get on the stick. Get us a Blu-ray copy. We want to see the whole thing, the whole director's cut on Blu-ray. Come on, get with us. So air is a minute before passing out and 3 minutes before dying. Next, shelter. You can live for 3 hours without shelter in a harsh environment such as sub-zero temperatures or maybe plus 90 or plus 120 temperatures. You need shelter. Human beings need shelter. And you can live for basically 3 hours in really cold sub-zero temperatures or in space or things like that. If you have air but you don't have any sort of shelter, it's going to just leach all the heat out of your body. So, water. You can live for 3 days without water. So, 3 minutes air, 3 hours without the proper kind of shelter in certain harsh environments, and water, 3 days. And that, by the time you're done with that, oh my goodness. If it dries you out, anything like my CPAP dries me out at night, yeah, I'm old and fat, and I kind of, okay, not that fat, but I'm still old enough, and I got this thing in the back of my throat that makes it so I have a hard time breathing at night. I have sleep apnea. And because of that, I'm on a CPAP machine. And I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to contact Philips tomorrow and find out what is going on, because I can't really do the over-the-face one because I got this lovely beard, and yeah, there's a cushiony thing that seals to it, but I've tried that one, and it doesn't seal me. But anyway, the point is, I wake up 2 or 3 times a night because my mouth is so dry that my tongue is stuck to the roof of my mouth. My lips are stuck to my teeth, and I need to push them off and go get a drink of water just to rehydrate my mouth. And there's that scene from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where he's like, "Would you care to wet your whistle, Marcus? I'd rather spit in your face. But since I haven't got any spit," he goes to drink it, and then the Nazi takes it away from him, leaving him dry again. But they're in the desert. They're dry. And so water there actually is a game master. You might want to, if they're lost in the desert with no water and they're 3 days from hope, you might want to even make those vigor rolls harder, because that heat is also taking and evaporating them. Of course, and that's like the scene in Quigley Down Under, when they get lost in the desert and Quigley thinks he needs to chase down the horses, but Cora actually says the wise thing and says, my grandpappy said, or my granddaddy said, that when you're lost in the desert, you need to sleep during the day and walk at night. And Quigley's counter is, did your granddaddy tell you that we'll die without those horses? And I don't know. I think Cora might have been right there. Although Quigley was a tough frontiersman. And I would rank Quigley Down Under as probably the best Western that isn't a Western. So, get a chance, watch that one. That is really cool. It's a great story, great action, really cool rifle. Really fun movie. Highly recommend it. And finally, you can live for 3 weeks without food. So, air, shelter, water, food. You can go without just about anything else, but those are the things you need to actually survive as a being, as a human being. So let's talk about one that I kind of just briefly touched on there with Quigley and everything like that. Heat. If the heat's over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which I'm going to convert that for any of you who are watching this internationally, 90 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius. And that is 32.22222. So basically 32 degrees Celsius. So if the heat is over that, and besides, you want to, for some reason, sci-fi has always been in meters and centimeters and things like that. And I was actually part of the age group where our teachers told us in elementary school, they said, by the time you're our age, the whole world's going to be using the metric system. It never happened. And that mix-up of metric system versus, which is used in science, versus imperial units, which are used pretty much everywhere else here in the United States, that mess-up is what crashed probes that NASA's launched. It's what made it so there was a failure of unit conversion from standard to metric, and bam. It's even in the movie This Is Spinal Tap, where they had to bring out dwarves to dance around the 13-inch tall Stonehenge because you put too many marks on there as far as unit conversion goes. But that's another thing, and it was funny. That was a funny movie. So if you're well supplied and you have water and all that kind of stuff, your chances of survival are going to go up. So give them a +1 or a +2 if they're actually supplied. But they need to make vigor rolls every 4 hours at about 90 degrees or more. If they fail the vigor rolls, they take a fatigue and need to recover by cooling down. You can subtract 1 or even 2 from the rolls made at higher or extreme heat, and 1 to 2 points if the characters are engaging in vigorous activity like combat. Heat stroke. If a character is incapacitated from heat, he must make another vigor roll. This is quoting directly from the book. Must make another vigor roll. Success follows the usual rules for incapacitation from fatigue, but failure permanently reduces his vigor die type to a minimum of D4. Critical as far as this, and you can still recover from this. A critical failure on this roll means they perish. Means he perishes. Recovery. A victim must cool down somehow to recover fatigue. This usually means water, shade, air conditioning, etc. So heat is a great environmental factor to put on things. And some of the greatest adventures still take place in the desert. Because if you think about all those stories, the Arabian Nights stories and everything like that, they're taking place in the shimmering heats of Baghdad back in the day. I mean, now you're going into Baghdad, you're going into a military type engagement in modern day or whatever. Baghdad is not the cool, mysterious place that it was back when Vikings were being hired as guards. So that's something to consider with heat. And I would love to hear what other heat application ideas you might have to put on your characters. I mean, you can put them in a steel room and heat up the walls. You can put them in a pot and boil them. You can have a wall of lava that separates to allow for the bad guy to poke in and out of. I mean, what was Syndrome doing there in that much heat on either side? How come he wasn't? Did he have some sort of barrier, that energy barrier or something to keep the heat reflected back in or something? Yeah, that's a pretty good question. So let's talk for a second about high altitude. When you're in high elevations, climbing the mountains of madness, or you're in a plane and you're roughly a mile or higher, every 4 hours there, make a vigor roll. And failure means they take a fatigue. And if the elevation is greater than 10,000 feet, roll to -2. Higher than 15,000 feet, -4. So bad guy takes them up and drops them out of a plane at 15,000 feet with a parachute. They're going to have to take vigor rolls all the way down. Or maybe they don't have a parachute and they got to figure out, that's part of how they have to figure out how to get back into this. So these are just some examples of things that you can do to make it more difficult for your player characters to succeed, but to give the players a better rush when they do succeed. Because that's why we give them hard times. That's why we give them difficulties. So I am so grateful that you came with me on this journey today. I'm grateful that you watch these videos and that you're on this channel. Of course, like, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. Share it with your friends, because we're building this community together. Bring another friend in. Let's make Ace Role-Playing Games the best community to help all of us tell a better story. And if no one's told you this today, I love you. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful that you are here with me, and there's nobody else like you. I love that you are that unique you, and that I get a chance to know you. I hope to see you at my table, and I will catch you on the next video. By the way, I hope you've been enjoying the shorts. I'm trying to sort of vlogmas, but just with a short every day. Good luck. And I do hope to see you at my table.